very popular leaders in your respective countries. You have spoken about a common sense diplomatic doctrine. So what's that Trump-Modi doctrine that you should expect?
Popular leaders.
Well, I think more than anything else will be the unity. We have great unity. We have great friendship. He and I and our countries. And I think it's only going to get closer. But it's very important that we remain united as countries. We're friends and we're going to stay that way.
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead.
this is Saurabh Shukla from News Mobile. Mr. President, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator. Who was a tougher negotiator today and who has a better negotiating tactic when it comes to tariffs?
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest.
Welcome to Washington Central. I'm Saurabh Shukla. In today's podcast, we will talk about the big US-India trade deal and the fact that President Trump has announced a rapprochement of sorts by reducing tariffs levied on India from 50 to 18%. Well, how does this impact the relationship? We will talk about that. What really went wrong between US and India? Why did the relationship nosedive? I'll talk about everything and also the inside story. What really happened, how this deal was concluded, and what happens next. So just to give you a postscript, in February 2025, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the White House. He had an excellent summit meeting with President Trump. In fact, I was inside the Oval Office. I started by asking the first question to both the leaders, where they both spoke about trust being a key factor in a Modi-Trump doctrine. And obviously, they said the relationship was one of its best, and both the leaders respected each other. When they came out for a press conference at the East Room of the White House, I got another opportunity. President picked me for another question, which is great for a journalist, and I think it was a great bonus for me. But I thought I'll change gears a bit. I asked him, who's the tougher negotiator, Mr. President? And his response was, he laughed and said, by far, Prime Minister Modi is. Clearly, that demonstrated the respect that President Trump had for Prime Minister Modi, and also underscored the fact that he wasn't a walkover, and India was a tough customer, and under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, they were trying for a hard bargain, whether it was on trade issues, defense issues, strategic cooperation, and the entire gamut of cooperation between the two countries. Then the relationship continued on an even pace. Obviously, there were bilaterals happening, the trade deal was being negotiated, there were other elements of the relationship that was happening. But then, when in the summer, when Operation Sindoor happened between India and Pakistan, India responded to a terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir, which was triggered by Pakistani terror groups, and certainly India had an upper hand. Clearly, whatever people may say, the fact remains that US played a role in mediating a ceasefire. The fact that President Trump and his key advisors, and he was there in the Oval Office when that phone call happened between J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, and obviously the key US officials of the US National Security Council, and clearly they persuaded India that a ceasefire was important because they didn't want the issue to spiral out and a nuclear war, so to say, would happen. President Trump obviously believed that he had a key role to play. India did not want to accept it, certainly, because there were domestic compulsions. Clearly, India had an upper hand. Why did they stop? All those were the questions. The idea was India did have an upper hand, but as a responsible power, it didn't want to escalate. When they knew that the Pakistanis were trying to resort to a nuclear blackmail, and obviously it was a imminent danger, clearly India knew that its objectives had been met. It had given Pakistan a clear message, and that was the point at which uh, obviously Operation Sindoor was put on hold. India said that they're putting Operation Sindoor on hold. But what really happened post that was a bit of, I would say, wasn't really handled well in terms of public diplomacy, because India obviously completely denied any US roles, which riled President Trump. And President Trump kept on repeating the fact that he had a role to play in stopping war between India and Pakistan. Clearly, that is where I thought the script went wrong, where President Trump is somebody who is a different kind of a global leader. There are global leaders who like to follow the advice of their key advisors, the institutional mechanism. He's a very different kind of a person. He's a deal maker. He's a businessman who understands the fact. He goes by his relationships, and all along he said that he respected the prime minister, but where he wanted was that dialogue to take place. That never happened. There was one call where he wanted India's prime minister to come to the White House when he was visiting Canada. Prime Minister Narendra Modi politely said no, and I thought that was a strategic decision, because at that time, Pakistan's Army Chief Asif Munir was also being called to White House, because the Pakistanis got to White House through one of their crypto connections. And obviously, India felt that that was not a wise decision to have India's prime minister at the same time. Well, that happened, but this also led to the Trump whisperers. There is a whole lobby which exists in Washington, D.C., obviously, who work on behalf of certain countries. There were certain people who were obviously inimical to India getting that close, I would say, the prized seat on the Trumpian orbit. That really riled them, and obviously they made sure that India's stock went down. For the past 8 months or so, the situation was so bad that even one of the senior-most cabinet ministers from India, who tried to reach out to his counterpart, could not manage even a meeting. In between, certainly India's national security advisor came to DC. He met with Marco Rubio, sent out a message to say that India wants the relationship to be better, but obviously it is willing to wait out if that is the way the Trump administration wanted it to be. Clearly, India was also digging its heels, but then President Trump appointed Sergio Gore as the US's ambassador to India. Sergio Gore has been a key Trump aide. He was the director of personnel at the White House, and clearly it was a coveted job for him. Insiders say that obviously there was some internal politics which led him to get that job, but the fact remains he still has the president's ears. When Mr. Gore reached Delhi, clearly he realized the potential of the relationship. All along, India, through different channels, through former Indian ambassadors to the US, through some of the others who were really, really betting heavily on the relationship, kept on impressing President Trump that we need to find a way out to solve this tangle, because the relationship going bad impacts everything. It's not about a trade relationship. It's not about tariffs, but India and the US have much more deeper connect. There are more than 5 million strong Indian diaspora here in the US, which plays a pivotal role. And certainly they were in their own ways lobbying their congressmen and senators as well. There are interest groups which started to lobby, but it wasn't catching steam. What really triggered it, Sergio Gore being there and India also deciding that we have to get this deal going. And the other big spur was India and the EU signing a trade deal as well. And clearly, that resonated well with President Trump because he's somebody who knows he respects strong leadership. And that's the reason why he respected the fact that India displayed a strong leadership. But he also is a sharp negotiator and a deal maker who realizes the worth of the other side. He realizes that India carries a great worth for the US, not only in a global shape of things, but also on the bilateral front. And obviously, US gains a lot by having good relationship with India. India, at the same time, Prime Minister Modi realizes that India gains a lot by having good relationship with the US. So that was the background in which this deal was concluded. And obviously, Prime Minister Modi made that call and spoke to President Trump. And then he announced that he's reducing the tariffs to 18%. Part of this, this is not only a trade deal, I call it a strategic deal because it sets out a template for 2026 and beyond for US-India partnership. You may see a defense deal coming up because obviously President Trump is a master salesperson as well. He is not going to give away anything without getting something in return for the US. And certainly tariff reduction also means that US will like that its goods are bought by India. And obviously, while there is no express promise, but the idea is that India will expand the defense basket. It will also expand the basket for some of the US products. It may not be, dairy and agriculture as a whole, but certainly almonds, pulses, these are the products which, India can buy more. We will see the semantics of the entire agreement coming out, but the fact remains that this will have a spillover impact from India. India's textile, exports to the US, which was badly impacted. Now, India has an upper hand because India's tariff is much lower compared to all the other leading textile importers to the US. And clearly, the US companies will find it easy to get that going, that entire supply chain going from India. So that's a major advantage. The other big advantage is that, as I was mentioning, it has a spillover impact on everything, whether it's the skilled Indian immigrants, the Indian students, because a tense atmosphere between the two countries certainly impacts everything. There was a complete reduction of the flow of students. In fact, almost less than 50% was there last year. The hope is that that can be revived because obviously the US side is also keen that there is a flow from India coming to the US and that relationship stays. What happens next? On issues like critical minerals, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar just concluded a meeting here in Washington, D.C., where India became a part of Pax Silica, which is a select group that US has created because it realized that critical minerals will be guiding the future and it wants to be a leader there. So that's something where India is now playing a role as well on AI, quantum computing, on silicon chips. Certainly, these are the areas where the convergence will happen. Then there will be space cooperation. Also, cooperation on, as I mentioned earlier, on defense, on intelligence, and also making sure that Indo-Pacific cooperation at the level of Quad, that's revitalized. There's a likelihood of President Trump visiting India soon. The dates are being worked out, but the idea is that this signing of the deal, and clearly once the contours are all finalized, then either Prime Minister Modi will travel to Washington, D.C., or they will find a way for President Trump to go there. But they want this deal to become that centerpiece for the entire relationship. As I said earlier, in a Trumpian world, things do change. He has a very different style, but the fact remains that he and his core set of advisors believe, and there is a bipartisan push for a stronger partnership with India. They realize that even though US is now investing in a relationship with China, President Trump is slated to do a visit to China, but they still realize that the prime competitor for the United States is going to be China, and certainly India is a country where they see eye to eye on more issues than one, and they can be partners for good there. Clearly, this reduction of tariffs and this entire trade deal coming together is a good signal because, as I mentioned, this opens doors for a lot of things which India and the US were trying to do together. Certainly, there will be challenges, there will be disagreements, but I see this as a new strategic dawn for India-US partnership in 2026. Stay connected to Washington Central, and do let me know what are the other issues you'd like me to focus, and do share this podcast. Thanks for watching and listening to us.